The oil part 4, all other parts down below. Plan A isn't wearing me out at all. When she moves out, I go right into plan B. I think it's the fact that there is a definite timeline that is helping make it easier. I'm not in limbo. I have a direction, a plan. But to her it's simply this. You move out, I'm not even your friend anymore. I'm our son's dad. That's it. The OM is your new best friend. He's your new everything since he's so great and worth leaving me for. Have him take care of you when you're sick or when you have a bad day. Or put your furniture together, or when something breaks have him fix it. If he already not too busy with his own bull. He and I don't exist in the same universe. And if you ever get your head out of your back, then maybe we can see where I am and if we want to rebuild our marriage and family. But if he is still in your life in any capacity, then don't even bother talking to me, unless it has to do with our son. And I feel okay about that. For the past few months, I've measured me up against the other man. In every way possible. The physical, the mental, the intangibles. Like I was at the relationship combined. I reevaluated my whole relationship with my wife. I reevaluated how we were intimate together. Everything, from the obvious physical things, height, looks, manhood, etc. How I treated my wife, if I was romantic enough. Everything I did for the past 17 years versus what he's been doing since the affair started 7+ months. No stone has gone unturned. Then my therapist and somebody else said a few things to me. First, stop comparing yourself to the other man like a guy compares things. My wife isn't a guy and doesn't view it that way. Plain and simple. When I tried to look at things from a female point of view, a lot of things disappeared. One of those big factors was that my wife wasn't trying to leave. She maybe said it in the texts, but the reality is, I'm kicking her out, and she's going, reluctantly. So, there is still some sort of attachment, love for me. When I had a health scare earlier this year, my wife was by my side. Sure, she was compartmentalizing her affair, but she was crying. The second my counselor told me was that he would be comparing himself and competing against me. It may not be obvious to my wife, but if I'm doing it, then it's a safe bet he's doing it too. Especially, if he really wants a relationship with her. He can't compare. Plus, I've shown his pic to a bunch of other women. They are all scratching their heads, so that helps too. I went by my wife's soon-to-be place to drop something off because though she might be there running errands and cleaning up. And lo and behold, Devin is there. I mean the other man. And even though I keep repeating to myself, drive away, I park, head up to her apt, and knock on the door. He was sitting on the floor eating lunch. I power past my wife and kick his food and tell him to get the hell out. He starts saying, and repeating throughout the encounter, it's her place, I don't have to leave. So, I get in his face and he backs away. My wife had to get in between us. And she's telling me to leave, and that guy just has that smirk on his face and he picks up the phone to call the cops. So, I naturally kick it out of his hand. Yes, I kicked it. It was pretty awesome. And he keeps repeating the same thing all while walking away from me. She eventually tells him to leave, and he goes downstairs and calls the cops anyway. My wife is frustrated and scared because she is moving in and doesn't want to disrupt her neighbors. I keep trying to calm her down so she can listen to me tell her that he's won. I'm done and I'll leave her alone till she moves out. The cops come, one lanky white one, one bulky black one, and the other man gets the lanky one. I get the bulky one. That is to say, when I saw them I knew who they were because they used to come into Starbucks when I worked there. So, I tell them what happened and the whole ordeal and that I know the law and such, and though I never laid a hand on him, I know they have a job to do, and he kind of laughs. He tells me basically that they've seen this before 100 times, and if he didn't have the badge on him, he let me have it. But it becomes a simple little procedure where they gather info. I don't know what the other man tells the lanky one, but again he's got that smirk on his face. The lanky one comes over and talks to me how he's going to get a restraining order. I inform him of my side. The lanky one tells me also how it's a messed up situation and that I got close to getting arrested. I told him I would accept responsibilities for my actions like a man. The lanky one says that he's sorry and that I've got to watch myself. While he would have no moral qualms about feeling the way I do and reacting, that I've got to be smarter. I got the sense that the lanky one did not like the other man. That he could tell he was trying to play the role of the innocent victim and manipulate and control the truth of the situation. The lanky one told me that if he does file a restraining order, just turn around and file one back. That it'll affect him just as negatively as what he may try and do, and that I should inform his employer that one is put into effect, so I should let them know when I shop there. The other man left. My wife calmed down. She wasn't embarrassed and ashamed. She got caught between two people and she didn't know how to handle it and couldn't make a choice. She kept telling me she was sorry so much and that she was going to tell him to leave her alone and not bother her and that she's done with the whole situation. I don't believe her, and I don't care. She'll be out soon enough, and to be quite honest, I feel awesome and feel like there is a weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't X him like I wanted to, but I didn't back down despite the physical disadvantages, and he turned into a snitching little coward. I showed him I have no fear, and if she wants to be with a little boy like that, then fine. I kept telling her that he won. He got his little prize, words told to me to use by my therapist. Then I hope he worth all this? Because I've had enough. Sure, it wasn't the best way to handle things. Sure, I should have drove off. But even though I went for the short-term rewards versus the long-term goal, I did what I needed to do. And I told my wife that while I apologize for making a scene and disrupting her neighbor, I don't apologize for getting in his face. And I don't apologize for standing up for my relationship. And if she's angry and leaves for good, then fine. Oddly enough, today she was going to file her response. And during the situation she told me angrily that she was going to change it to divorce. I asked her if she did. Her response, no, I wouldn't do that, I've done enough. And she still wants me to go to Orlando next week with her, my son, and the in-laws. Luckily, I'm off to Bangkok City till Tuesday, and then she leaves wed till Sun, and she'll be out by the 3rd. I'm holding her filing one if, when she decides to reconcile. That may be part of the condition of the NC letter, since they do work together. Although I found out from a coworker who I told this that my wife told her, without any prompting, that the other man told my wife he may put in or has put in for a transfer, and my wife's response was negligible at best. It seems that she's been telling her coworker how he's been messing up and whatever. And to be perfectly honest with you, seeing them having lunch on the floor together kind of killed off what love I have for he at this point. I'm sickened and disgusted because I was able to look this guy in the eye again and realize what an ugly, cowardly guy he is. And that she's thinking of leaving me for him. I'm not saying that love can't return, but to be frank, she'll have to bring it out of me, because it's hiding and protecting itself. I mean, seriously, calling the cops when nothing really happened. I wouldn't be surprised if he said I was being violent to her, just to make himself look better. Like he's some kind of knight in shining armor. We've already filed for legal separation. She filed the response today. She moves out August 3rd. That's all done. I've been in planner for the past few months, and for the most part, it's having its effect. The plan B is coming, except it's LC because of our little boy. The 180 has already been happening, also having an effect. She questions all the new clothes, or the waitress hitting on me Sunday at Outback. Honestly, all the plans, tactics, and strategies I've been doing, and it's all going off without a hitch. Today in the confrontation made me feel great because I got to stand tall for how I felt and what I feel. And he acted like the coward I knew he was. I am awesome. Just an interesting update from last night, this morning. 2 things my wife said to me as we were talking about the incident. And mind you, this doesn't change her moving out and such. These are just interesting notes. 1. The OM was pissed that she's not going to file a restraining order against me. He still will, and he'll counterfile and have it dropped off at his work in the middle of the day so people know what kind of coward he is. As well as soon-to-be ex wants to use that to help with her custody battle. He was hoping she would further drive a wedge between us. And he thinks I'm unsafe and such. As well, I found out he wasn't happy that I was laughing and chuckling with the police officers. 2. And kind of off topic, my wife wonders why when I got out of the shower, or have been, covering up, I had no real reason, I just did. But she all of a sudden noticed. As well, she mentioned how she's noticed the changes in me losing weight and getting in shape. She especially noticed it when I confronted him. She said I puffed up, like I'm fish or something. I said I may be, but it's also because he shrank under the pressure of confrontation. Doesn't change anything, but then again, out of the country right now, but a few minor updates. She's been out buying minor odds and ends for her apartment, but she's been texting me how much misses me and hopes I'm okay while I'm away. But talked to her coworker, friend, my spy. Apparently, she went up to her and told her about the confrontation. She said that she had never seen that side of me. Her friend asked how. My wife responded with me getting loud, aggressive, and physical. That I puffed up. Her friend got a very strong impression from that conversation, which makes me wonder if manning up in a very physical manner may turn the tide. After all, the other man has been able to project confidence and leadership in his very controlled environment of work with minimal effort. Something I think made him look very appealing to her, along with the manipulation of our marital problems. But I took him out of his comfort zone, and he folded. I'm sure that he's pulling the whole "I'm a better man for not fighting" line. And under most conditions to me that would be the correct stance. But in this instance 2 things strike out at me. 1. The natural consequences of his actions he couldn't own up to like a man and instead ran to the police. 2. A better man simply doesn't go after a married woman, period. As well, the friend told me that my wife let her know that the OM hates me. Like I give a flying rat's ass, but I think it's great that I'm under his skin now. I went after his family, his job, and him. Successful or not, I've made this a war. He may win a battle when she moves out, but I'll always win this war. Whether we get back together or not, but I'll be there in the back of his mind when she moves out. And though I won't be in any real contact, he won't know that. He'll have to be reassured, because he knows she's leaving my house reluctantly. The pressure will mount, and if he still files the restraining order, then my counter will do enough damage, especially if can put my son in that. Also, a couple times before my wife leaves for work in the morning, I've caught her on my side of the bed just sitting looking at me, and Friday she actually told me that she's going to miss me, which is to be expected, cake eating or not, but just another changes I've seen in her. More as it come. Comment, why are you still waiting on her to decide your future? Why are you so reliant on her decisions? She's off having an affair in your face, yet you still hold out hope for this. OP responds, I'm not necessarily holding out hope. She is moving out and I am focusing on myself, but at the same time, I still love her. She's still the mother of my child, and I don't believe that she's 100% into him. I know my wife better than anybody else. I know she's still in the fog and I know the statistics work in my favor, but she's going to have to learn the hard way the grass isn't greener. I'm not accepting of this. That's why she's moving out. She isn't doing it by choice. Same with the separation. She's using my attorney to take care of business. What's that tell you? By the holidays the affair should be over if I know her. She needs to grow up as is and this will force her to do it. After 17 years I know I still want to spend the rest of my life with her, but not while the affair goes on. And when it ends, we'll have a lot of work to do to fix it. But it's possible. For once I'd like to be one of the success stories here. After all that's gone on, I think it can happen. A lot of people wonder why I still hold out hope or deal with it. It's because that's what I do. I'm sorry for those whose marriages don't work out, but I have no desire to be part of that group and I think our marriage will eventually survive. I don't think I'm being a doormat. I've been sticking to the surviving an affair plan for the past month or so. I am seeing some doubt in my wife's actions. When she moves out, I go into a plan B. And the reality, I'm not giving her a year. That's her date based off of her lease. I'm giving her till legal separation papers go through. But when she moves out, I've told her so much as I won't even be her friend, just the mother of her child. I emphatically believe that the Plan B 180 method will have an effect on my wife. That along with her counseling, of which the therapist is trying to get her to break away, her meds, and her family and my son will all have an effect on her relationship, as well as the OM himself. I've gathered a great deal of info from his soon-to-be ex-wife. A lot of things that my wife will not like, but she has to discover them the hard way. So, I'm not going to sit around waiting. I'm moving on, but if she gets her head out of her ass, then the opportunity may present itself to reconcile. Or I'll put it this way, she asked me a week ago, what if I find someone that makes me happy? What right does she have to end it? I told that she is the mother of my child. We will always be connected and he has the right to a complete family. And if she wanted bad enough to be with me, then she would have to fight for me. She would have to put in as much energy and effort that she did into the affair. She would have to be willing to go to NC, to become transparent, to become totally honest, and to boost my ego. I already told her that I won't be second place or her backup plan. I know a lot of people will say that I am, but I believe it when they say that an affair is like an addiction. That the WS is out of their mind and is like on a drug or alcohol. I believe people make mistakes, and everybody should have a chance at redemption. But it will come with a price. There will be no blind leap of faith, but methodical healing. I think my wife is starting to come out of the fog or having moments of clarity, but she can't bring herself to end it because she still has feelings, and to be honest, she's weak. That's been her biggest personality flaw since the day I met her. She is very much a textbook affair. As well, I think life, the new baby and house got to her. I'm not saying any of this is an excuse. It's all the worst thing I've ever been through. But after pounding my head against a wall for the first few months and doing absolutely everything wrong, I've changed up my strategy and it seems to be working. Does this work for everybody? No. A lot of people wouldn't deal with adultery. A lot of people would just kick them to the curb. But I'm not one of them. If she really wanted out or to leave, she would have. As well, and I'll say it again, having been a child of divorce, I believe my soon should have the chance of a whole and complete family. My wife has been on script with everything she's done, and her reactions to the things I do. There is no way we can fix the marriage while she's in the affair. So until that happens, she's getting kicked out. And believe you me, reality is affecting her, as well as the fact that I could theoretically date sooner than later. A new update on this whole restraining order thing. I found out through her coworker that he either can't or it will get harder to get one against me because my wife will not sign off as a witness. So, to my knowledge, he won't be getting one against me. That has to piss him off. And in a small way, I think it sends a statement to him that my wife is not as committed to him as he thought. Of course, it could mean nothing. But if I were him, I'd take it as something. It's a small victory, and I'll take it, even if it doesn't mean anything to our relationship. It pisses him off and that works for me. Apparently, the OM texted my wife that she had come in and my wife waited in her car, crying it seems. That coming from my MIL. There was no confrontation there, though it would have been nice. After all, their love is so great, shouted from the mountaintop right. As well, the OM stayed in the back delivery area of the store. Like the coward he is. He's scared of his ex, because she can still take him for child support and full custody, and she doesn't want him back. So, when this party comes crashing down, he'll have nowhere to go. And quite frankly, I still can't get over that my wife isn't backing him about the row. Not because it helps me, but because it hurts him. To me, he left his wife for mine. She didn't exactly jump away from our marriage, and now she's being kicked out. And she's moving as slowly as possible. And one more thing. My wife, son, and Mil are going down to Disneyland this weekend. My son asked me to meet them there for set. I told her if he texts, I'm heading right home and I'll walk right into that store and make him crap himself. Her response, he doesn't know I'm going. And it's none of his business. Already lying and hiding things. Her coworker's husband, a vendor, and my friend are going to ask next week when the other man is around if I made it down and had a good time. Just to make it aware that I went. Then we'll see how he acts, and her reaction. And thus, their relationship will live by the sword and die by the sword. And I'm laughing, because by then, she'll be moved out, but he'll always wonder. Found out just a bit ago that my wife doesn't want the other man to even know that she's going to Orlando. I know they had talked about wanting to go together at one point, back when I could read their texts. But now she's hiding where she and her mom are going on vacation. So now a lie about me going turns into a bigger lie. I wonder why. Why should she hide anything? I thought he was so perfect. After all, why would he get mad? I'm being facetious, by the way. And next week my friend will go up and ask her how Orlando was and if I had a good time while there. While the other man is within earshot. That should stir up the hive a little. Update: Orlando went well. I accomplished my goals of having a great time with the family, keeping my mouth shut and focusing on my son. And just trying to be the best person I could be. I was tempted to be snarky on several occasions, and my wife saw it coming. But I said nothing and instead was just good. Since Orlando is a trigger, they text about it a lot. I felt great to face that fear head on. And at some point, my wife even grabbed and held onto my hand. Sure, it's possible at some point she was thinking she wishes he was there. But it's a definite that she was happy I was there, still leaving the good thoughts in her head. This week, we are supposed to have the talk with our son to explain what's going on. It'll be one of the toughest things I've ever dealt with, but like everything else that has come of it, I'll face that fear head on too. The only bad part is that I feel the hate and anger start to creep in about this whole thing again. And I know that it will derail such hard-earned changes. I just hope I can stay focused with the plan ahead. So, my wife has started getting some of her stuff together, and she's planning to move the bedroom stuff out this weekend. As much as I need this to happen to keep from going down a dark path. It feels a lot like the day I found out about the affair. And as much as I need the reality to set in for her to help get her out of the fog, the reality is setting in for me that there is a possibility of this ending completely. Although I do have hope, and I know my wife well enough, and have seen some progress. There are still some unknown variables, like she could like living on her own, or she could break up with him, and in the midst of actually healing, find someone else. But she mentioned again how she just feels lost and confused, and how she's going to fall flat on her face. The OMX called me today and told me how a totally different coworker mentioned that my wife said how controlling he's becoming. I still place my bets that the holidays will be it, but this week is becoming a lot harder than imagined. I want to be angry and start questioning everything because I might not get another chance. I want to yell and scream, but as the 180 says, I can't back off of the hard-earned changes. I have to avoid angry outbursts. As much as I want to get angry, if we fight before she leaves, then it'll just justify it more in her mind, as opposed to giving her a good image to stick with until. We had the talk with our son tonight, and it happened just as I thought it would. I did most of the talking. My wife sat behind him hugging him while I told him how much we loved him. Not his fault, and how mommy and daddy aren't getting along and mommy going to move out. And he's going to have 2 rooms. For a 3-year-old, I think he handled it well. Reaffirmed the I love you. I said I love you to my son and he replied with the I love you too. My wife said the same, but the response was quite different. She had to ask a do you love mommy because he wouldn't answer and he replied with a no. He understands what's going on if not the words. And he verbalized that he wasn't happy. At this point I'm sick to my stomach. I hope that little duck worth it to her cause right now. I want X the living out of him. And I'm about as angry as I've ever been at my wife. I want to say at whoever lots of stuff that'll pretty much destroy her. But I'm better off not. She's still lagging on filing part of her separation papers. The 180 is for me, as well as preparing to be a better dad and to prepare to date again at some point. Maybe even date my wife. Our plan B is slightly different because she will be able to see my one and have some contact with me. Because of it she'll see the changes I've made. As for her crap, I've done a good job the past month or 2 showing her I can do them. I've made it very clear what I want. That reconciliation is possible, but only if NC is established first. I have spies at her job to help me with that. She'll also be getting my Plan B letter, which will lay everything out again, and I'm going to send a letter to her therapist simply to explain my side of things so she knows where I'm coming from, should she need to steer the sessions that way. But for now, it's protected me and my son. She knows there's a safe harbor here. But there are requirements, no compromise. Oddly enough, I find myself talking a lot of more firmly to her than ever to get her to listen. And I have to say I see a noticeable change in her reaction when I do so. She's quiet and kind of sits at attention. I talked to her somewhat gruffly of how I felt about the talk and what I want. She was in a pissy mood, not when I changed my tone of voice and got serious. It disappeared and she listened. So, plan A is almost over. This weekend, I helped my wife move the remaining furniture she's taking to her place. What? Helped her move, you say? Screw that. It's her problem, you say. Yeah, I know, but I wasn't going to let that crap anywhere near my house. And I'm planning it till the very last. And it was beneficial throughout the whole weekend. On Saturday, we moved the stuff together. As a team, I finished up my son's room. It's nice, and I hope he's happy. I poked and prodded my wife for what little answers I could get. I even outright asked why him. She of course gave me an I don't know, but she then confirmed what I had known for a while. I asked if he gave her the "if I was your boyfriend" speech, and she said yes, but with a look in her eyes that said to me, how could I have fallen for it? After the move, we returned the truck. We gassed it up and returned it. Afterwards, when we were driving to get some grub, my wife remarked how when I was pumping gas and when I was lifting some of the heavier stuff, she saw my arms work. She noticed how big they were getting, and how strong. She then broke down and said if she doesn't figure stuff out, how somebody was going to get really lucky. Yeah, I know, right? Sunday started out okay. She told me how the OMX has been coming by her store the past few Tuesdays, and this last time she saw them talking in the front of the store. Well, per my wife's story, they headed back in, but he had distanced himself far enough ahead of her to intercept his ex that my wife felt like he bailed on her. Her great protector took off to save his own face, but my wife also has it in her head that he may try to reconcile with the ex, something I think she's making up. She told me about that red flag, and that she's mentioned to her IC several others. The IC could only ask how many red flags it was going to take. I got no answer on that one, but after his little bail, they got into a fight. He called her style of fighting relentless, something he can't handle, but I can. In theory, she also told him I went down to Disneyland, Prague, to piss him off. She then brought up the fact he's going to another store to train employees and they're trying to make him transfer permanently, something my wife said she's not discouraging. The rest of the day was getting a few things for her app and taking our son out for some playtime. She did try to lash out on set, but I saw it coming and just kept my plan in mind, to not give in to the fights, because that's what she wanted to appease her guilt. Instead, I was firm and took control of the situation, and she responded. I gave her my plan B letter this morning. She's coming by to pick up the last of the basics and watch my son, and then it'll begin tonight. We'll see how it goes from here, but I think I put in her enough knowledge of who I am and how I can be if she decides to help fix the marriage. I even listed what was necessary in the letter. We can only see what happens next. And so, it happened. She moved out, for the most part, tonight. My modified plan B begins. It was a relatively emotional night. Thankfully, my son was wired, so he took some of the energy and distracted things a bit. I think because I saw this coming and I know I've done my best to be the best I can be. It isn't hurting as much as I thought. Of course, ask me tomorrow and it may be a lot different. And at the same time, I've got no choice but to embrace being a single father. If I can be a good single father and learn, I'll be a better father when I'm in a relationship. Of which, the countdown begins. I'm still giving her the holidays. 1 week since she moved out, I found out the OMX finally dropped the bomb on him. She told him that she's known about the affair. His reaction was the typical one you expect. Shifting, denial, modifying or lying about facts. She told him she knew everything, but he just played the role of the other man like a fiddle. The best part is when he mentioned that our marriage is over and that we're getting divorced, but we're just getting a legal separation. Something my wife even made clear she would rather do as opposed to a divorce. Tonight, my son had his first night over at Mama's house. I've been pretty good going into this modified plan B. We haven't talked about anything but drop-off and pickups. Now how are you? Her and her mom have been getting into it a bit lately too, but I dropped my son off. About 15 minutes later I get a call because he's losing his mind. So, I head back to calm him down till he goes to sleep, and they're kind of quiet, not saying anything, just watching TV. Then my wife starts talking, and the next thing I know she's telling me a bunch of stuff on how it's going, how she's miserable and hates her app. Then she goes into how she's going to take a leave of absence from work to sort things out and focus on our son. She tells me how she's so lost and confused. She still has feelings, but she doesn't know what love is. She is telling me how she's trying to take a breather from everything and that she's told the other man to back off, but he's trying to get closer and closer. I think she's even tried to break up with him and he's said not the kind of guy you just get rid of, and that it would be that easy, or something to that effect. She's telling me about her past few therapy sessions, how she feels like he's trying to come between her and her son, but she can't bring herself to pull away completely. I didn't say much, I just listened, but before I left, I reiterated my stance and what I would expect should the day come. Suffice to say, I take everything with a grain of salt, but it was interesting nonetheless, and my son finally went to sleep, a bit past his bedtime. The other man's soon-to-be ex has been quite the ally. She has no desire to be with him anymore and is moving on. This morning she called to tell me how my son's first night went. She went on to mention how between a text he sent her at 9:30 and when I left at 10 he texts her an additional 7 times. With a "how's it is going? Anything wrong?" But he also tried to call her 6 times too. Got that? She didn't respond right away, and he got all kinds of possessive. She said to me this morning, "It looks like I've got a psycho on my hands." I think when she tried to break it off with him, he naturally got scared. But saying how he just can be gotten rid of is insane. Now I'm not getting my hopes up. In fact, I know this will happen about 4 more times before she's done. But she also mentioned how she's still going to take time to sort herself out and that it doesn't mean we're getting back together. And that's fine. I just want her out of the affair, and we'll take it from there. That said, I'm still moving on. I can't be friends with her and watch her date other men either. But if I focus on myself, things will fall into place. But the show isn't over yet. Looks like there was more to last night than I knew of. I got home after my son was dropped off and my wife let me in on more of last night. She had gotten those texts and phone calls before I left. But there was one more, and coming over. This was at 10:30. He arrived there, while my son was there. He was apparently furious. She said she'd never seen the look in his eyes before. She tried to get him to go away because my son was there. But he wasn't listening. Though I was there, which of course I was, and again because she essentially tried to break up with him that day. He had all kinds of thoughts in his head. She didn't go into too much detail of what else happened. He tried talking to her, but she was so exhausted that day that she had a hard time staying awake. And I guess he eventually left. She told me this as she was crying. But at the same time, she said she wanted to be honest with me. As well because it affected our son. It took a lot of energy to hold back my anger, to keep my mouth shut. But I realized that now, the first thing my wife needed was a safe harbor. That going dark may jeopardize her safety and the safety of my son. I guess I'll have to worry about that first, then the marriage after. That said, we know what's going to happen if he lays a finger on my son. As well, the OMX would love to hear about this in terms of the custody battle. I also informed my wife of her power in this, how she could file a restraining order, how she can file a harassment claim. She wants to see if he'll back off like he said. I told her that he's already crossed the line. He's not going backwards. He won't back off. He's as much said it with the whole "not the kind of guy you send away" line. But at this point I've no choice but keep a watchful eye on the situation. My comment, part 5 coming today as well. The ending is coming shortly, so subscribe to watch the final ending ASAP.